Tate Publishing along with Tate Out Loud Audiobooks presents Mister Ses attends Stockville Elementary Academy. Written by Sheila Craan. Narrated by Myra Escoro. It was the opening day of school in Hillshire, England. Brianna rose brightly to get ready for her first day in class with her new teacher, Sister Dorothy. She daydreamed about her school day as she stood and admired the uniform her mommy had neatly arranged on her dressing room chair. After a short drive, Brianna and mommy arrived at Stockville Elementary Academy, which had guarded gates. Then mommy kissed her goodbye and affectionately hugged her. "I love you bigger than this universe, my charming poupée. Have a very nice day at school." Brianna waved goodbye as she quickly walked to her classroom. She was terribly excited about being a student in Sister Dorothy's class. Sister Dorothy was eager to learn the names of her new students. She asked the students to introduce themselves. When it came time for Brianna's best friend Haley to give her introduction, she decided to describe the most memorable event that happened to her this past summer. She zealously expressed herself to overcome her icy sense of intimidation since she was a restless girl. "I attended the most spectacular party hosted by Brianna," affirmed Haley. "I had a joyous time, jumping on an enormous trampoline and riding a moving carousel on a white llama. I played pin the tail on the donkey and a tic-tac-toe twisting game with all her friends. I ate to my heart's delight after Brianna's guests broke a piñata full of goodies. I greatly enjoyed winning a dance contest bugging to a popular disco beat. Then everyone received a memorable gift for attending the party and for also being promoted to your class, Sister Dorothy." These social activities intrigued Sister Dorothy. It gave her many ideas for engaging lessons for this particular school year. She wished to make her students quite excited about the prospect of learning new things. In her first lesson, Sister Dorothy began teaching her class the French alphabet to define the beginning phonics steps in French reading comprehension. By the end of the third week of school, everyone could repeat the French alphabet. Now, the children each had an assigned seat according to the first letter of their name. Brianna sat in the second seat, while Haley sat 6 seats away from her. On a brisk fall morning, the same wee Ses that had taken refuge in Brianna's bathroom, named Mister Ses, tiptoed his way into Brianna's classroom. He was living in a home he created on Stockville's Elementary Academy's east side. He had built his home after running away from Brianna's refreshing bathroom faucet last summer. He had nowhere else to go. The dry leaves in the Academy's clogged drain helped him create a safe abode out of a defective metal pipe. He left himself enough room at the bottom of this gutter just to relax and to eat every insect he could get by chasing them into his trap. His makeshift gutter home was perfect for when he needed to sleep and cool off from the hot summer sun. Soon, the season would evolve into the usual crispy, wet weather of the English countryside. Mr. Ses had never found his first owner, Mr. Bill McCrae. He dearly missed his lifestyle in the Ses oasis that Mr. McCrae had created for him last winter. It had been in an exquisite, dry aquarium full of smooth stones, a cactus plant, 2 baby frogs, and 3 flies for his tantalizing thrill. During the first 4 months of school, Mr. Ses found an inconspicuous corner to hide in Brianna's classroom. He eavesdropped and concentrated on everything Sister Dorothy taught. He learned the French alphabet, and learned to read phonetically in English too. During story time, he hypnotically observed Brianna and felt acutely hesitant to befriend her because he remembered how she said she loathed playing with pet Ses. Early one morning, a gentle boy in Brianna's class named Leslie noticed Mister Ses' wavy tail swaying about in the academy's gutter while he was playing with a ball on his own in the schoolyard. Leslie was awestruck by all Ses' belongings. He collected Ses robots, Ses puppets, Ses books, and he posted Ses pictures on every wall of his bedroom, including the ceiling. Additionally, he drew many pictures of rainbow-colored Seses in a professional artist's sketching pad. He loved to frame all these pictures. Leslie shrieked with delight and smiled from ear to ear when he saw Mister Ses. "Well, hello! How are you, you poor little Lizzie? Are you lost?" "I am just fine. And no, I am not misplaced, smart boy. This is my marvelous dwelling. Please understand my name is not Little Lizzie. It is the remarkable Mister Ses. Nevertheless, I could really use some assistance with Sister Dorothy's schoolwork, you know." Leslie said in disbelief, "Smashing! How do you know my teacher?" Mister Ses grimaced and responded with his little Ses finger over his mouth. "Shh, shh. This is a big secret, Leslie boy." Leslie eagerly chose to befriend Mister Ses. After all, he valued Seses. He carefully placed him in his suit pocket, looking with caution around him as he did, for the other students were playing in the schoolyard before the class was due to start. From this moment, Mister Ses no longer needed to creep into Sister Dorothy's classroom and hide in a dark corner, because now Leslie had agreed to pick him up in front of his pipe housing first thing in the morning and brought him into class. Leslie would also take him back home in the afternoon. Leslie and Mister Ses became dear friends and shared their class notes. Leslie was an overly shy boy, and both he and Mister Ses collectively had a thirst for knowledge. They were both exceptionally eager to learn all of Sister Dorothy's planned lessons to the point of excellence. Leslie's interactions with Mister Ses helped him overcome his shyness. Leslie soon became a class clown because of his outspokenness and the unique sound of his laughter. When the students asked him a question, he refused to answer. He would simply utter, "I'll tell you the answer when the chicken has teeth." The children would break out into a belly laugh when they heard this saying. They took particular notice of his witty facial expression. Sister Dorothy admired Leslie, since his reading comprehension had suddenly soared considerably. One day, she apparently noticed an amusing object resting on his desk. "What is this thing on your desk, Leslie?" He elegantly replied, "I'll tell you the answer when a chicken has teeth." All the children started tittering and wondered what would happen next. "It looks like you have an odd-looking crayon with a special eraser," insisted Sister Dorothy, trying to overlook his bold statement. Most of the students oddly believed that Mister Ses was a green-colored oil pencil and had paid no attention to it. Leslie often raised Mister Ses to show him the lessons that Sister Dorothy drew on the chalkboard in a wavy fashion. Mister Ses always remained still and alert, so not to draw attention to himself before his time had come. Leslie spoke with a distinctive ability. "Sister Dorothy, it's surprising you have not noticed my pet Ses after all this time. My Mister Ses is my very good friend, and he has attended your class for the past 7 months. Mister Ses is exceptionally well-versed in all your class lessons. He has taken notes for me, and to boot, he has helped me to overcome my bashfulness. This has assisted me in improving my reading comprehension score, you see. He knows how to write his name, and he is fascinated by your world history stories. He is an avid reader and can do simple arithmetic too, Sister Dorothy." Will you cordially allow him to prove his Ses intellect? Sister Dorothy, dumbfounded and starstruck, did not know what to say. Hence, Leslie continued with a few more requests. Then, will he let me create a suitable Ses home in her classroom with this old, sturdy aquarium? I will take full responsibility for his care, Sister Dorothy. I will feed him and clean his new home every day, I promise. I truly promise. Sister Dorothy pondered for a few moments on Leslie's proposal and decided his idea was clearly inspired. Mr. Ses did seem thoroughly trained, at least she thought so. She gladly accepted Leslie's proposal. Yes, I would be honored to have Mr. Ses as a special guest in our classroom, Leslie. Mr. Ses felt elated to become part of Sister Dorothy's exceptional quality exhibits, staggeringly special, just like her plants, seahorses, and exquisite baby hamsters. Brianna was suddenly astonished when she realized he was the same Mr. Ses she had found resting in her cool bathroom faucet last summer. She feverishly raised her hand to tell the class her story of how Mr. Ses desperately needed a home and must radically change his environment when his skin color altered. Brianna then turned and addressed Mr. Ses directly. I see you in an entirely new light, Mr. Ses. I see a grand transformation in you. Therefore, I suppose I will take a liking towards you. Please excuse me for casting you out of my home, though you did tread into my private quarters uninvited. Mr. Ses declared, I am truly sorry for this. Please forgive me, most honorable Brianna. I meant you no harm whatsoever. Brianna became seriously interested in Mr. Ses' care. She earnestly wanted to know how he had learned to read, write, and do basic arithmetic. She, out of her way, ensured he was at peace. She could not wait to tell her mother about all the excitement that was going on in her classroom. Mr. Ses' class aquarium was fantastic. The children added precious rocks with seashells and moss. And to keep him warm, they installed a natural light bulb. Every student participated in making the old rugged aquarium exceptionally Ses-like for him, except Brianna's best friend. Haley stayed far away since she clearly detested reptiles and was terribly afraid of them. Mr. Ses' new home reminded him of his old harbor created by Mr. McCrae so long ago. However, this one was 100 times better since he had become part of a student body. Moreover, every student affectionately accepted his extraordinary uniqueness, a most prized accomplishment in his eyes. Leslie had been feeding Mr. Ses half of his lunch since the beginning. This is what caused him to become super intelligent. His eating habits had become healthier, causing his taste buds to change radically. No longer did he crave to devour insects, and neither did he seek to pursue them. He was somehow wonderfully able to develop human qualities. He was now using his mind to learn about a new society, a humanitarian world, and was also acquiring basic earthly attributes by simply eating people food. Every day, Leslie provided Mr. Ses berries with a beef sandwich, which he rapaciously devoured in a minute, and he grew enormously. He eventually became too weighty for his aquarium and was large enough to fill a typical student desk. Sister Dorothy assigned him a desk beside Leslie. The entire class marveled about his intellectual growth. Mr. Ses behaved sympathetically, as his massive bulk made him look a bit gruesome. Nevertheless, every boy and girl loved him, all except Haley. Haley had already decided that she did not like him at all, since he was such an unusual reptile. She generally began to cry hysterically every time she glanced at him. A horrible feeling brewed inside of her in a frenzied way that she could not control. Her endless crying annoyed everyone in class and utterly distracted Sister Dorothy. During the spring recess, Leslie continued to push Mr. Ses to eat currants. with meaty sandwiches and added coconut macaroon for dessert. Mr. Ses became remarkably intelligent and even grew taller than 4 feet high. Leslie remained in a fervent spirit and continued to read thrilling stories to him, from imaginary tales of eccentric science inventions to legends of courageous people who conquered nations. All the time, this reading practice helped to enhance their education even more. Mr. Ses soon grew over 5 feet tall. He was now the tallest student in his class. His tail had shrunk and disappeared, while his front legs resembled 2 small hands that were perfectly suitable for writing. He stood upright on his hind legs and carried a book bag that Brianna had given him during a class festivity right before the spring break began. Mr. Ses was well liked by all the children except, of course, the insecure Haley. Soon, almost all Mr. Ses' classmates became tired of Haley's constant crying. So, sadly, Sister Dorothy decided to move her to another classroom with students of her ability and as far away from Mr. Ses as possible. Mr. Ses passed all of Sister Dorothy's exams with flying colors. He was proud to receive awards and stars for his exemplary behavior, as was Leslie. Leslie's parents decided to adopt Mr. Ses temporarily. They created a cozy area for him connected to Leslie's bedroom. Leslie and Mr. Ses became esteemed as if they were brothers. Mr. Ses, tickled pink by Leslie's Ses things, found it compelling. He probed him about these amazing Sesses, and Leslie answered his questions with much patience. Of course, Sister Dorothy treated Mr. Ses just like all her other students, without singling him out for his appearance. He was a valuable addition to the liveliness of her class and contributed insightful observations to her lectures. Thanks to Mr. Ses, every student can make sense of her intricate seminars on philosophy. The diligent students received an excellent score for their efforts, including Leslie. Every schoolboy and girl, along with the remarkable Mr. Ses, was proudly promoted to the next level when June rolled along. Mr. Ses pompously anticipated the following school year. He wondered about what would be taught, and if he emotionally would be able to pass his grade level given his hefty, singular size. Though he felt a tad self-conscious, he knew he would try his best. You have been listening to Mister Ses Attends Stockville Elementary Academy, written by Sheila Craan, narrated by Myra Escoro. Copyright 2015. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any way by any means electronic, mechanical, recording, or otherwise without the prior permission of the author, except as provided by the USA copyright law. This has been a Tate Publishing and Enterprises Tate Out Loud audiobooks presentation. For more information, please visit tatepublishing.com.